Hello students, today's topic is quite an interesting topic in philosophy particularly. When we think of Hegel's philosophy, it's very exciting and all the more a relevant one. Before we go into the details of Hegel's philosophy, let us first have some kind of understanding over the present situation to draw some kind of relevance from Hegel's philosophy. There are two aspects that now we need to take into account and bring to our notice about Hegel's philosophy. One, what is the reason for which Hegel sounds so exciting for the modern day problems and modern day philosophical debates? The second is interesting aspect of Hegel's philosophy is the way he tries to build an overarching philosophy which scrutinizes not only the problems of his own days but also the problems of the present day. So, let us briefly have some kind of discussion on the present day problems to draw relevance from Hegel's philosophy. The today's world is so fragmented, so individualized and so divisive at the societal level, at the political level, at the economic level and more so at the level of ideas. So, this divisiveness in the present day society demands some kind of answers from our philosophical understanding. Hegel normally is known for his complexities. In the common parlance of philosophical debates, Hegel is often shown as a very complex and a difficult philosopher. Yes, Hegel sounds to be very difficult and complex if you remove him off from the relevance that his philosophy holds for the present day. He is not difficult nor complex if we look into his formulations over the problems of his own days, which are quite akin to the kind of problems that we face today. The purpose of Hegel's philosophy is to bring realize an organizing principle whereby these divisives would not be subsumed, would not be ignored, but would be incorporated into the effort of unifying the entire society. Hegel also, for our understanding, let us look into the purpose. Hegel also seeks to scrutinize the problems of his own days, which was fragmented. He belongs to late 18th and early 19th century. He was a witness to French Revolution, the traumas that the French people have undergone during this particular period. Though he was a German philosopher, he was a keen observer of the developments that were taking place during the Napoleon days. Napoleon was his one of the favorite figures whom he thought would in fact realize his philosophical formulations. In any case, as I was saying, the divisions of his own times, divisions in terms of sectional interests, divisions in terms of the kind of transformation that the European society was witnessing from feudalism to capitalism, the divisions result of that kind of transformation nagged Hegel's mind all the time. So, Hegel, right from his young Hegelian, as philosophers characterize his early writings, from his young Hegelian days to the mature Hegelian days, he had a kind of sojourn into the complexities of philosophical debates. Okay, let us begin to understand how he starts. There are two phases that no one can identify in Hegel's development into a mature philosopher from his early days. In his early days, his concerns was mostly about critiquing the religion, that's Christianity. He was thinking that in the initial days that the religion provides a kind of overarching framework for the people belonging to different communities, different classes, different sections, whereby they live in unity. So, initially Hegel was looking at religion as a kind of unifying framework. So, he takes cues from the ancient Greek days. He also takes cue from the Christ. So, religion for Hegel was such overarching form of existence for the people, where everybody in fact identifies with other in the society. So, religion provides that kind of platform for the people according to Hegel. But as he matured in the later stages, he started looking into the problem of the divisions that erupted in the rudimentary forms of capitalism of his days. He took the divisions in the society as real and concrete, but he did not end there. In fact, he began from there. See, often Hegel is termed as idealist. Hegel is termed as a philosopher who subscribed to universalist frameworks, who ignore these divisions or particularistic vantage points to understand the society. Hegel in fact neither universalist nor particularist. His objective purpose is basically to overcome this divisiveness of the society, to build a unifying framework, but this unifying framework must not be mistaken as something which ignores the individualist concerns in the society, the individual interests, the selfish interests in the society, the interests of the self, rather one puts it that way. So, his purpose is not to ignore them while overcoming them. In fact, what he emphatically says that only when you consider the self interest, the interests of the self in the society in building the universal framework. So, that way in fact now from the today's point of view, one can see enormous possibilities in Hegel's philosophy which can provide the universal basis while keeping the pluralities in the society intact. See, the present challenge, the challenge of present day problems is neither to be universalistic while ignoring the particular self individual's interests in the society, nor to be individualistic ignoring the unifying principles. So, Hegel in fact now gives us a tremendous possibility to reconcile these two extreme positions, the universalist on one hand and the particularist on the other hand. And that is the reason why some recent writings say that Hegel's theory is theory of reconciliation between these two extreme, supposedly extreme opposites, universal and particular. So, how, let us look into the way that he develops this theory of reconciliation between these two extreme opposites. Firstly, Hegel does not look at these two, universal and particular, or society and individual. To put it very simply, the interests of the society, the interests of the common interests of society or community, and a selfish interest of an individual are not two opposites. They are not opposite to each other. They are opposites definitely, but they are opposites in one whole, within the whole. So, he sees the basic possibility of reconciling these two into one unity. So, that is the beauty of Hegel's philosophy. He does not look at them as basically opposing each other to separate from each other. In fact, they are opposing each other with the potential to meet, to unite, to reconcile. So, let us see how he does this. Philosophy of Hegel basically contains certain elements. Let us look into these elements one by one. Firstly, for Hegel, philosophy is of consists of three elements or characteristics. He says philosophy must be comprehensive enough to understand the significance of individuals seeking their interests, and at the same time, while individual in a society seeking his own interests, how he connects himself with the others in the society. It is a commonsensical fact that no individual in the society can live for himself without really relating oneself to the others in the society. So, this interconnectedness of an individual self with the other aspects in the society, the lived experience in the society. So, the philosophy must be firstly comprehensive enough to understand this interconnectedness between individual's self-seekingness and his connectedness with the other elements in the society. Secondly, he says philosophy must be systematic. Philosophy must be systematic enough to reconcile these two supposedly extreme positions, society and the individualistic divisions in the society. Society as a common interest and individual interests as divisive tendency within the society. So, he says, unlike most of these postmoderns who revel on the differences, saying that there is no possibility of metanarrative. Metanarrative means what these postmodernists say, that you cannot evolve universal frameworks because these universal frameworks have been historically subjugating individual into non-entity. So, postmodernists, while thinking that they are drawing something from Hegel, in fact goes much opposite, contrary to the position of Hegel. So, Hegel, in fact, postmodernists begin and remain at the level of individuals divisiveness and the divisive character of the society, and think that that is the reality and that is the fact. They revel in that, whereas Hegel actually begins from these divisions and goes on to overcome these divisions through reconciling and reincorporating this individual self into the society as a whole, into a common interest. Now, the third point that Hegel talks about philosophy is that he says philosophy must be historical. When he says philosophy must be historical, that means philosophy should understand the developments in its dialectical historical motion. that nothing happens in the world accidentally. There is no coincidence. The historical development of human consciousness is continuous. There are no disjunctures, there are no discontinuities from one aspect or development to another. The dialectical motion is basically a process in which the opposites unify without losing their essence, without losing their entities. So, the forward movement of the spirit or the consciousness, he uses these words in various ways. Sometimes he calls absolute idea, sometimes he says consciousness, sometimes he says absolute idea. But whatever, what he says is that the opposites that we have been talking so far in the human life, in the forms of life, constantly integrates into each other, developing into a synthesis, which means developing into a new form of life. So, this new form of life in reality not new to or not different from the previous. It is definitely different, but not in the sense not having any link with the previous forms of life. In other words, the previous forms of life, the previous forms of consciousness evolve into this new synthesis while keeping the characteristics, while keeping the essence of the earlier forms. So, it is not loss of, when we experience the new form of life, which does not mean the loss of the essence of earlier forms. In fact, the earlier contradictions assume new meaning, new form of life in the synthesis. So, the unity means the synthesis of this essence of these two opposites and carry forward. And thus, the whole human history could be seen as an inordinate, continuous dialectical motion of these opposites, opposite forms of life. So, dialectics in fact of Hegel provides a new angle to look at the history, and also it provides enormous hope to us, a confidence to reconcile these. And dialectics is also useful and relevant to the present times of present day problems, as I was saying earlier, that today's problem is basically how to reconcile the pluralities being built on the community lines, being built on the religion, being built on caste or class. So, dialectics provides us that confidence to understand how to live together while giving due respect to, due recognition to these pluralities of our present day societies. So, this dialectical understanding of history in fact provides the possibility of that reconciliation. So, anyway, he moves from here to check out or explain basically three forms of sociability of his times. He says the first form is the family, where individual enjoys absolute freedom in that small community. In fact, he even says that it is beyond any reason that how come an individual holds such a tremendous trust and confidence within family, where the same individual cannot hold the trust and confidence in the civil society. It does not repose the similar kind of confidence and trust in others. In fact, once you step out of the family, you see yourself to be much against everyone else in the society. So, that is the character of the civil society of Hegel. that individuals thrive their lives on divisive lines. So, for Hegel, basically civil society is a market economy based on the materialist relations, a result of the emergent capitalism. It is interesting that while looking into these divisions based on the capitalist market economy, he does not throw it away. In fact, he looks at the promise that the modern capitalist society started giving to the people, because it provides enormous scope for individuals' promotion of one's own capabilities. So, he says market economy does provide through the competition the capable individual. But at the same time, immediately Hegel also looks at the other side of this emergent civil society. The other side of civil society is dark for Hegel, dark in the sense these divisions actually collapsing the individuals into tight compartments. But here where actually Hegel's problem begins. He says within this they hold the potential to evolve into a unity, not by withdrawing, not by rejecting the individual self. The individual self itself acquires the consciousness about the need for being interconnected, for being connected with the others in the society. So, what is the basis for this? How an individual realizes this? Individual realizes or accomplishes this consciousness by recognizing the need of interdependability. So, he says very interestingly, the individuals would have the unity of these opposites, but this unity, as people think, is not the unity of ancient Greek kind, ancient Greek police. We all know that in the classical ancient times, even during Hegel's time, there was a lot of debate around the positive aspects of the ancient Greek police that we all know, a city state. So, the debate was in fact glorifying the unity that was realized during these ancient Greek times. In fact, to some extent Hegel was also influenced by this idea of universal principles, which make this unity possible. Later times it was religion which unified the people, but Hegel was also very particular and conscious of the fact that there is no going back, there is no possibility of going back to the ancient Greeks or to the medieval times. So, he says it is neither desirable nor possible going back to ancient Greeks, because the ancient Greeks unity during ancient Greek times was unmediated unity, whereas the unity that Hegel is trying to envisage is a mediated unity. That is a very interesting proposition when he comes to characterize the civil society. What is this mediated unity? What mediates the unity among the strangers? What he calls the unity in the modern times is a unity among the strangers, because the individuals in the society relate themselves quite impersonally. There are no personal bondages. The individual can relate in the modern societies, modern relations only in an impersonal formal way, unlike what he does within the family. Family is basically kinship dependent related relations, whereas in the civil society the persons relate each other in a very formal way and impersonal way. So, he says in such an context of impersonalized relations, the individuals can mediate through only certain norms, only certain regulations which are mutually accepted upon, which are mutually agreed upon. So, these norms, regulations which forms the basis of the ethical life, which he says commands and constitutes the modern life in the civil society. So, this realization of the ethical life, the mutually accepted norms and regulations, and pre-committing themselves to these norms and regulations would actually provide this what he calls as mediated unity. So, it is this ethical life that mediates between the people. It is this ethical life that constitutes the spirit of the state. It is this ethical life characterizes the ultimate stage, the final stage of human consciousness, that is the realization of one's own need to depend upon each other. Thus, in conclusion, one can say Hegel is very, very significant for the present day divisive society, where Hegel's philosophy provides insights and possibilities and hope, confidence to live together and overcome, while not ignoring oneself, while not ignoring the concrete realities of divisions in the society. They unite with each other. So, the modern day problems can definitely search for solutions in Hegel's philosophy.